Hey everybody, this is Don and Dan with the Clinical Trials Guru. We're here with Dr. Richman. And Dr. Richman, we're going to let you introduce yourself and give just a brief bio, and we can take it from there.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So you guys already know my name, Michael Richman. I'm a board-certified cardiovascular surgeon and a board-certified general surgeon. And I did my medical school training at Georgetown and general surgery residency at LA County, USC, and my cardiothoracic surgery training at University of Miami. And I then practiced just cardiac surgery completely and wound up getting into cholesterol management somehow and wound up opening up a cholesterol center and a vein center and do a lot of cholesterol management and advanced lipoprotein testing and lecture on that, and I'm on the editorial board of the Journal of Lipidology and also have a busy phlebology and thoracic surgery practice.
Wow.
And because of all this, I've wound up writing a book on cholesterol management and being involved in clinical trials.
Okay.
Awesome.
Now, how long have you been in clinical trials?
Probably been doing, I would say 9 months, maybe a little longer.
Okay. And what prompted you to make that transition into clinical trials?
Basically, a associate I know who's a MD who doesn't practice anymore started a company, and his company is involved with bringing clinical trials to physicians, and they conduct the clinical trials for companies. I guess it's probably the blinded portion because I don't know who I'm actually doing it for.
Okay.
So that's how it wound up happening. I wound up having to take a course in order to get IRB approval, and it's just mushroomed from there.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, we want to give some advice. We have two groups of audience that are pretty distinct from each other. One is other researchers, other people such as yourself who work in the industry or people who want to get into the industry. And then we have, of course, the general population, people who may be considering clinical trials. I like to first address the research professionals or the potential investigators out there. What's the one piece of advice you would give them about getting started in clinical trials that maybe they're not prepared for, or something that you may not think about until you actually start doing it?
Well, it's not, I thought it was just because I had heard physicians all the time say, I'm involved with clinical trials. It's not like you can just pick up the phone and call somebody and say, I want to be involved with clinical trials. I thought it really was like that. You actually have to be either affiliated with a university or somehow get to somebody that's involved in clinical trials that can get you in the door, because once you're in the door, then your background is researched and they know what kind of practice you have, then you can get involved. But just because you want to do it, if you don't know or have an avenue to get involved in clinical trials, it's not like you can just pick up the phone and call somebody.
Right.
I wish you could, because there's a lot of good doctors that have a lot of good patient populations but have no access to figuring out how to get involved.
Okay.
So then the next thing you need somebody in your office who actually, at my level, it's not, I don't have every patient in some different clinical trials enough that my one nurse can handle. But if you're going to do it at a really high level, you need a dedicated nurse to handle all the clinical trial stuff.
Okay, so your dedicated nurse is actually your coordinator.
Right. She's my nurse. She's the one who draws all the blood, because the patients who are in the clinical trials are not coming in my office to be in a clinical trial. They happen to be my patient, and then there's a clinical trial going on that they fit the bill for. So it's a different type of thing where then people are seeking me out just to be involved in a clinical trial.
Okay.
Yeah, we're definitely starting to see a trend in the sponsors actually reaching physicians like yourself to be investigators, because you already have real patients in your practice, and sometimes research naive populations. So they really look forward to doing studies with physicians such as yourself. Now, we get asked this a lot by potential PIs out there. The barriers to entry in clinical trials, is it high, medium, low? What is the barrier to entry?
What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, let's say I'm a doctor and I just want to, start doing a study, and you kind of talked about it earlier. How easy is it for me to, start conducting trials from my office? Is it?
Well, I don't think you can go just as a community physician and say, I have an idea, I want to start a trial. It's just there's not enough money in industry, and they're not going to do it based on your idea. It's hard enough in a university setting to do a clinical trial. I think that the way I've done it is the only feasible way is where they come to me and they say, we have this clinical trial going on. We're not going to tell you, what company or anything, but here's the inclusion criteria. Do you use this drug a lot on your patients? Because let's say you have patients with high cholesterol. Is it feasible? We can use you as one of the sites. And that's how we figure it out. But it's not, despite even a really well-known cancer doctor in town here who is involved in clinical trials and very, very academic and connected with everything. We've actually gone to AstraZeneca about doing a clinical trial between our two places with his cancer patients and using Crestor, and they didn't have the money nor the interest to fund it.
Yeah.
To do it. So, and this is with somebody who's, publishes in Circulation and in JAMA and everything, is really well known, and it was still, he couldn't get it done.
Right, yeah. I've reached out to him on Facebook a few times. Now, switching gears to the patients, we've got a lot of people watching that are interested in clinical trials, but they want to learn more, and they're still scared of being guinea pigs. How do you respond to one of your patients saying, hey, doctor, I appreciate the offer to do a clinical trial, but I don't want to be a guinea pig? How do you respond to that?
Well, it's not, I won't participate in anything that is hocus pocus. That's not, I'm not interested in furthering research for selfish interests when I know that, a good volume of research, a good volume, probably more than less, of medicines that are being tested or devices, whatever, really are not ever going to see the market and or maybe are harmful. I mean, I'm not willing to do that. I'm willing to use already medicines that are FDA approved on patients and see who need it and see what it does. But I won't personally participate in anything where you're going to deny somebody a life-saving medication just because.
Right.
That's not how I practice medicine. I don't do this to get my name on anything. I don't get my name in any of the journals because I don't even know, who what company's conducting the trial. So it's certainly not for selfish reasons, but it's I want to provide data to them, but I also will not allow my patients, for example, to not be on a statin who needs it just because one arm of it is a placebo. I just won't, I won't do that.
Interesting.
Now, if I can, just switching gears, because I don't have a lot of time, Dr. Richmond. This is Don. You have a book that you've written on cholesterol, correct?
Right. I wrote last year with Dr. Bill Cromwell, who's one of the authors of Framingham Offspring and Mesa. Studied Bill Cromwell and Tom Dayspring, who are both very well-known lipidologists. Myself, we wrote a book on lipoprotein management and current guidelines and it's been very helpful. I mean, the exact title is Lipid and Lipoprotein Disorders, Current Clinical Solutions, and it's basically how to treat people with high cholesterol lipid disorders, an algorithm, how to go through it, how it should be done based on current guidelines. So we did that at the end of last year.
Is your book targeting the professional, or is it targeting both the professional and the potential patient?
My patients that read it, I mean, it's only 21 pages. My patients that use it are my patients who are very well informed and who are really interested in it. Other than that, it's just healthcare practitioners or drug reps or people like that. Very readable, understandable, but I think if you read it, you will have enough knowledge, probably more than, I would have to say, than 80 to 90% of the physicians in the United States on cholesterol management, on atherosclerosis, on the different drugs, and really how they work. So it's pretty comprehensive.
So if I'm someone who has high cholesterol and I'm being treated with medication, but I want to learn more about that, would your book be for me?
If you basically understand, some fundamentals of, the cholesterol has to get into the artery wall and just basic fundamentals. But if you're going in with not even knowing what total cholesterol is, or the good cholesterol or the bad cholesterol, it's probably, you need to start at the real basics.
Okay, and how would one find your book?
It's available on Amazon or through the publisher on my website. It's very cheap. It's like $11, I think, is the book. Through my website, but basically, the book is great to carry around, especially if you're a physician or healthcare professional. But just by going to the website, it's all free. I've pretty much dedicated myself to educating, and
Wonderful.
And Dr. Dayspring and I do it. And if you read the professional section and you're professional, there's enough information there where you can pass the lipid boards just from learning the professional section. And in the patient section, it's everything I've written for WebMD. As their cholesterol expert, I repost everything I write for WebMD.
Okay.
And, talking about clinical trials and then different medicines and, pretty much every lipid topic you can think about, we've covered.
So what website would I go to if I wanted to get that information?
It would be www.lipidcenter.com, LIPIDCENTER.com.
Interesting.
Okay.
And like I said, it's free. I'm not selling anything. I'm not pushing anything. I'm pushing education because I think that in this day and age, 1 in 2 people are still dying of heart disease, and the prevalence is increasing, not decreasing. And right now in this country, we're still doing it wrong. We're still not identifying a huge segment of the population by regular testing. People need to understand the limitations of normal cholesterol testing. And once, if we could get that part down and at least identify people, which we're not doing, then at least we need to educate doctors on the differences in medicines and people, and that 80% of it's a genetic cause and 20% of it is your diet, and people really need to understand the facts, not what they read on the internet, written by somebody who has a gripe with a pharmaceutical company.
Right. Yeah, good point. There's a lot of that out there. There is a lot of misinformation out there, but there is also a lot of great information out there, so always be careful about what you guys are reading online. And Doctor, final question, because we know you got to go. Give us a bird's eye view of clinical trials, and are we making any progress towards heart disease and things like that?
Well, my own personal opinion is I think we're lagging, and I certainly with the way healthcare is going now, I see things getting worse, not better, because it's been hard enough to get, for example, every statin is not the same. They're all different. They all have different cholesterol lowering effects vis-a-vis the amount of lowering. Some things do one thing, a triglycerides are not, and they are not all the same, but yet everybody puts them together as the same. Well, it's hard enough, 6 months ago to get certain medicines. Well, now it's becoming even harder to get certain medicines. So I think we're going backwards. We're not going forwards. And given that we use in this country the same people to make all the decisions, to comment on everything, to have an idea on everything, it basically doesn't allow a lot of outstanding physicians who maybe don't have the academic name behind them to give their opinion and to give their advice, who are actually in the trenches every day. We still, unfortunately, go to the same people at the Cleveland Clinic who have an opinion on every single topic, but yet I always wonder as a physician, I'm like, boy, they certainly have time to talk about every single topic. How can they take care of patients?
Right.
Really? I mean, and that's what it comes down to. So my fear is that in the future is, given that we don't look at what's cost effective and provides the most information, and then given now that we're going to, the trend is, at least for this Medicare Advisory Board, to be made up mostly of lay people to decide medical decisions. My fear is that we're going to have non-qualified people make decisions solely on cost and on epidemiologic and retrospective studies.
That's some very strong and interesting points.
And I think it's very, very concerning, because at least what I tell my patients, I'm taking care of people, I don't take care of populations, and it's great that the data shows. And then I always just use, the mammogram type of data. Why did this whole thing come out from the United States Preventative Task Force about raising the age of mammograms? Well, it's because, statistically speaking, and I'm making an arbitrary number, I don't remember the number, but let's say in order to save 5,000 lives, you had to screen 1 million people. And this is all just arbitrary. On a population basis, obviously, it doesn't make financial sense. So they raised the age. Versus, if you look at it, boy, those are 5,000 lives. And those are people. And we're doing this on a basis of populations and on cost, rather than looking at individual lives and individual people. And really, is that where the cost is in medicine, or is it going into the hospital and paying $10 for a disposable toothbrush?
Right.
So, there's a lot of things that need to be changed, but I can tell you that at least heart disease is not getting better, it's getting worse. We're doing something wrong, and I know it's that we're not testing properly, we're not testing for the right things, and education is lacking. I just went and gave grand rounds at Georgetown University, and they came up to me afterwards, the Department of Cardiology, and they said, we need to do this advanced testing in our hospital. We've known we need to do it, and I'm just still blown away the lack of education vis-a-vis certain disease processes.
Yeah, there definitely is, and hopefully with websites like yours, everyone who's interested, go to lipidcenter.com to learn more about Dr. Richmond and the Center for Cholesterol Management. And you guys are in Los Angeles, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But I do have plans in the works right now, doing a business plan. I'm going to try and open these up throughout the country, so people can at least get access and get the premier testing and get what needs to be done, because there's many states where it's impossible to even get anything other than just a regular lipid test.
And you'll keep clinical trials as part of that, kind of integrated within the
right.
system.
I'll definitely, once I do that, I'll expand more, and who knows, maybe even wind up having a dedicated clinical trial nurse and being involved on a higher level.
And I imagine one of the benefits would be, clinical trial for your particular medical conditions offer free screenings for cholesterol, right?
Yes.
So that's
Absolutely.
a
There you
great
go.
benefit. I mean,
Yeah, it
we
does.
deal with psychiatric trials, but we provide services like that as well, like free screenings for Alzheimer's. So
Right.
it's at least something. It is a free medical service, and if you want to do the trial or not, that's up to you. But there are options out there, so
Right.
it's important that people know that. Thank you very much, Dr. Richmond, for coming on.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Richmond. It's a pleasure and much success on what you're doing.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
And so this is Dan and Don from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. And Don, what'd you think about it?
I thought that was an excellent interview. I'm really impressed with Dr. Richmond. I like educators. I like to hear, when I hear clinicians talking about educating the population, because that's the most important thing we all can do is learn more about our health. And he's a proponent of that. I'm definitely a supporter of that, and I love hearing it from Dr. Richmond, and I really do mean it. I wish him much success on his plans. I hope he's able to expand across the country and teach everyone on what we need to do in fighting heart disease, basically.
Yeah, and as a byproduct, he's got the clinical trials integrated there.
Yeah.
So you've heard him say that he does not do studies where he thinks it may not benefit the participant. So that's great. We need more PIs like him,
Absolutely.
study doctors who are really selective about the type of studies that they choose.
Absolutely.
And you just heard him say that he'll turn down some studies if they have placebo, and if someone needs to join a study and they need to be put on a medication, he's not going to take that chance of putting them in a study with placebo. So that's
Right.
that's admirable, and we definitely thank him for taking the time to talk with us today.
And as I said, I take my hat off to him.
This is Dan and Don from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.